It's amazing to see all of you here tonight. We have over 100 students in attendance from Massachusetts, Connecticut, all over. Pretty exciting to see the student movement for liberty kind of get together here at Harvard and hopefully take off even more from here.
We had 30 people last year. 30.
We had 30 people last year. It's amazing. So, let's get to the main reason we're all here. Mr. Schiff, Peter Schiff, is President and Chief Global Strategist for Euro-Pacific Capital. He's one of the few investment advisors to have correctly called the recession before it began. His accurate forecasts on the U.S. stock market, economy, real estate, the mortgage meltdown, the credit crunch, the subprime debacle, the whole thing, they brought him great renown. His first book, Crash Proof, How to Profit from the Coming Economic Collapse, was published by Wiley in early 2007, and it predicted the 2008 economic crash, while pretty much everyone in the mainstream was saying that it was impossible. Last year, Wiley released his follow-up bestseller, The Little Book of Bull Moves in Bear Markets, which kind of teaches readers how they can protect their finances from the ongoing crisis. And now his latest book is Crash Proof 2.0, and it advises readers how one can still make a profit now that the crash is actually here. So Mr. Schiff delivers lectures at major economic and investment conferences around the country and the world. He's been quoted often in the print media, including the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the LA Times, Time, Fortune. His broadcast credits include guest appearances on CNBC, Fox Business, CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News Channel. He also has his video blog, which many of us here follow. And I'm sure many of you have seen his famous YouTube video, Peter Schiff Was Right, with millions of views on YouTube. He was also an economic advisor for Ron Paul's campaign in 2008, and he's running for the Republican nomination in his home state of Connecticut for the 2010 U.S. Senate. Mr. Peter Schiff.
First of all, let me just, in case anybody's wondering, I'm not fashion challenged. And I'm not trying to set a new trend here. I simply forgot to pack my shoes. But anyway, I'm glad a lot of applause for my Senate campaign. How many people here have actually gone to my website and signed up to volunteer? All right, so for the rest of you, if you go, my website is SchiffForSenate.com. And if you go there, there's a place to sign up to be a volunteer. And it's really important that you do that if you really want to see me get into the Senate. I think one of the ways that I'm going to try to overcome the mainstream Republican establishment that's backing another candidate and some other people who have access maybe to more funds than I do. One way to compensate for that, or to overcome that, is going to be with my volunteers. Most of the other candidates really don't stand for anything, so nobody's going to volunteer. They're just going to have to be paid. And so I think I can get a lot of people who believe in what I'm saying and what I'm trying to do, and if you can translate that into effort. One of the things that we're working on right now, and it'll be up on the website hopefully in a week or two, but it's going to be a way for people to volunteer even without coming to Connecticut. I mean, it'd be great to get some people to come down to Connecticut and actually, meet and talk to voters and, knock on doors and put signs out and man, card tables. But even from your telephone, we're working on a database where you can, log on to the computer, just go on the website and say that you want to volunteer to make phone calls. And I purchased the voter database for Connecticut. And so what you'll be able to do, if you want to call, it'll give you names and phone numbers. It'll just show up voters, Republican voters or independent voters, it'll decide what we're trying to do. And you'll be able to make the phone calls, read a little bit of a short speech, ask a few questions, just input some of the answers, and then go on to the next guy. but the computer system will be keeping track of all the calls and making sure that we're not calling the same people twice, at least initially, and grabbing all the information that all the feedback that you get and compiling it so that we have a snapshot every day about how the race is going. Is my support rising? Where is it effective? And then if the computer can see, okay, this is where we're making a difference. Let's channel our phone calls there. So it'll be something that I don't think anybody's ever tried in modern politics, because they probably didn't have the manpower to make the phone calls. I want to have 10,000 people making phone calls for an hour a day into the state of Connecticut, which would be, if people could make even 10 calls an hour, that's 100,000 calls a day. I mean, the whole race is going to be decided. The primary in Connecticut, it might be about 150,000 people who are going to vote. But all the voters, I think the entire election is going to be maybe 1.5 million people. So if we contact all these people in advance and let them know who I am and what I stand for, I think a lot of them might vote for me. And also, you'll be able to help fundraising the same way. I have a list of donors that people will be able to call to actually hit them up for monetary contributions. So between getting out the vote and helping me get donations, people who believe in this cause can do a lot of work just with their laptop computer and a telephone. So again, just go to schifforsenate.com and sign up. But anyway, what I want to talk about, I guess, today is the economy and where we are and where we're going. And I know, a lot of people in this room. How many of you? Most of you are still in school, right? So I mean, at some point you're gonna be graduating and looking to get a job. And don't all call Euro Pacific Capital. But unfortunately, those jobs are going to be scarce for some time because the government is interfering in the market in such a way that the jobs of the future are not really being created. They're being destroyed. And until the government understands and appreciates the nature of this economic crisis, it's not going away. It's just going to get worse. We made these mistakes once before during what became known as the Great Depression. Something bad happens, and the government feels compelled to do something about it. Nobody can do nothing. Nobody wants to appear to not care. All the politicians don't want to be accused of not doing anything. What are you doing to help the unemployed? What are you doing to help the economy? And they can't, resist that, so they have to do something. And of course, what they do makes the situation worse. But nobody usually can figure out. They don't see the connection between what the government is doing and the problems getting worse. The government simply responds to the bigger problem with even, more solutions. I've compared it to throwing gasoline on a fire. But you don't make the connection between the gasoline and the fire, so the fire keeps getting bigger and you keep throwing more on it. And eventually, you have a raging inferno, and that's what happened during the 1930s, and they ended up with the Great Depression. The bigger problem for us is that during the 1930s, the economy was actually in better shape than it is now. And the government didn't have the power that the government has today. They were still constrained by a constitution. Now the constitution means nothing. The government does whatever they want. There isn't even a consideration that something might be unconstitutional. I can't even think of anything that the government would do that anybody would think was unconstitutional. So back then, when Roosevelt was around, he had to pack the court in order to get some stuff through. And even after he packed it, there was still a limit to what the New Deal could do. And even though Roosevelt was greatly expanding government, it came at a time when government was very small. Government taxes were very low. Going into the 1930s, most people didn't pay taxes. There was an income tax that was just enacted in 1913, but only the very, very rich paid it. 1% maybe of the population paid the income tax. No one else even cared. It just didn't apply. Their incomes weren't high enough. There was no Social Security tax. So people really had no federal taxes. None of the states had income taxes. So, all people paid were sales taxes. That was it, duties, So the government was small. They didn't have, no one really got checks from the government. The government paid for the army, which was a lot smaller, but that was really all it did. So when Roosevelt came in and decided to expand government, the country was relatively prosperous. We were rich. We had so many years without government.